Okay, our next video is I'm going to show you how to factor a perfect square trinomial. And as you remember, if you remember rather, the definition of the perfect square trinomial, it is the product of the factor of a square of a binomial. So if we are going to factor a perfect square trinomial, the result will always be a square of a binomial. Always remember that one. Take note. So how we are going to consider that if that expression is considered as an example of a perfect square trinomial. So here are the conditions. So we have the first condition. The first term or the quadratic term, when we say the quadratic term, kato itong ang exponent is 2. So the first term is a perfect square. How we are going to determine if perfect square siya? Remember, I let you memorize the perfect square numbers. So, yeah, you can determine if it is an example of a perfect square if you memorize those perfect square numbers. So, the next condition is the last term or the constant. Basically, some of the perfect square trinomial, the last term has a variable but always constant man siya. So, the last term is a perfect square also. And another condition is the middle term or the linear term. When we say the linear term, it is where the variable is in the highest degree is 1, is twice the product of the first and the last term. Don't worry, we will apply this one later sa methods in factoring PST. So we have the fourth condition, the middle sign can either be positive or a negative. So it's not so the sign at the middle term is not dili siya kuan suning nga perfect term para ana dili siya ingon nga basta dili mo maglibog basta ang middle term niya is pwede siya positive, pwede pa siya negative. But always remember na ang first term and the last term is always positive. Walay perfect square trinomial na ang iyang last term is negative. Always remember that one. Ang pwede raman negative is just the middle term. Okay. The next condition is the sign of the last term is always positive. Yeah. Ito kung gingan ka ganina, the sign of the last term is always positive. So the only thing or the only sign that can be changed is sa middle term. The rest are positive. So, yeah. We have the steps or the methods. Please copy this one so that you can apply this later, these steps. So we have the first step, square root the first term. So we will square root. The square root is like this. It's kind of like division but it's not. Kasi meron siyang dito, line sa gilid, slanting line. So therefore that is square root. Square root the first term, which is square root the quadratic term. And then the second step is square root the last term. And then step 3, create a binomial using the answers from step 1 and step 2. And take note that step 1 is your first term and step 2 is your second term. Then step 4, copy the middle sign of the PST. Then step 5, square the binomial. In short, we will apply that one in an example para mas dali siya ma-digest, no? So let's have this example. No, ito na lang. So let's have this example. Okay, let's have the step 1. Step 1. The step 1 right here states that square root the first term of the quadratic. Okay, but before we are going to apply the methods, we need to find the conditions from the given expression if it is a perfect square trinomial. So, perfect square ba ang first term? Yes. Perfect square ba ang last term? Yes. Is the middle term twice as the first and the second term, or the first and second term is multiplied by 2? Yes, kasi perfect square din itong 4. So, yeah. So, first is square root the first term. So, square root of x squared is x. So, we have x. Next step is square root the last term. The last term right here is 4. So, square root of 4 is 2. The next step is create a binomial using. When we say binomial, di ba kwanto? Two terms, having two terms. But we can have it inside the parenthesis. Using the answers from step 1 and step 2. And take note ito, your step 1 is your first term. The answers from your step 1. And the answers from your step 2 is your second term. Second term. So the answer for the step 1 is x. So we can write it as our first term sa binomial. And then the answer for step 2 is 2. So we can have it here. And then let's copy the sign at the middle. The sign at the middle is positive. So we can copy positive right here. And the last step is you are going to square the binomial we created. So therefore, the factor of this perfect square trinomial is x plus 2 squared. So the factor of this PST is a square of a binomial. So I'm going to put a box for this is our final answer. Okay, next. Next, let's have another example. Again, step 1, square root the first term, which is x squared. So, square root of x squared is x. Next step is square root the last term. Square root of 1 is 1. Next step is we create binomial inside a parenthesis. So, our x is our first term and our 1 is our last term. And we copy the middle term of this PST and we will put it inside the binomial. Then, the last step will be squared the binomial we created. So, therefore, the answer or the factor for this perfect square trinomial is x plus 1 squared. So, the next topic will be the difference of two squares. So, hope you still browse my next video so that you are able to know the shortcut method and how to solve the difference of two squares. So, yeah, I'm going to box the final answer. So, that's it. Thank you.